All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Steelers' offense, talk about the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. The offense did struggle. These past two preseason games. So let's kind of get into it. So Russell Wilson did make his preseason debut, and he went 8 for 10 for 47 yards. So nothing spectacular. Numbers don't really jump out at you in his limited playing time. But what did jump out at us was the offensive line play. The offensive line struggled. They allowed 3 sacks and only one first down, with the offense averaging 1.6 yards per play. And Mike Tomlin highlighted the poor pass protection, especially from former first-round pick Broderick Jones, who gave up 2 sacks, and rookie right tackle Troy Fontenot was absent due to a knee injury. So, and that's a problem because the Steelers have really tried to fix this offensive line, and early on in the preseason, going up against the Bills, and before that against the Texans, it doesn't look like the offensive line has really been playing up to their standards. And Justin Fields really wasn't any better than Russ over the weekend. His stats from the game, he went 11 to 17 for 92 yards, and he also had 42 yards on the ground. At this point in Russell Wilson's career, it just doesn't seem like he's going to get outside the pocket and move around like he used to. And that's what made him dangerous. Sorry, I had to say that. With Justin Fields, you at least get that. You get that mobility. And Justin Fields actually had that really nice play. I think it was to, who was it? Dez Fitzpatrick. Where it looked like he was going to get sacked. Yeah, it was Dez Fitzpatrick. He looked like he was going to get sacked. He got out of it, and he completed it for 19 yards to Fitzpatrick. And, yeah, that was a good play. And that's what Justin Fields can be capable of. But I don't know. The offense just has not been great. And, like I said, the offensive line play was not good. They scored 3 points. Now, I didn't watch this game, fully. But the Steelers did have opportunities to put up points. They kind of went for it on some fourth downs, and they didn't get it. So I think if they don't do that, the score. I mean, the score ended up being 9-3. It could have been tied at some point, but then again, the Bills are not playing their starters, so. But yeah, it's just the offense has not been great, and that's something to worry about. And also, Jaylen Warren, one of their running backs, he's hurt. He's dealing with I believe, a hamstring injury. Yeah, so he suffered that during the game against the Bills. He's expected to miss multiple weeks. His availability now for the regular season opener against the Falcons is uncertain, so he might not even play week 1. And that's a key guy on this offense. He played well last year. And especially towards the end of the year where you had him and Najee Harris, them running the football better. That was one of the reasons why the Steelers ended up making that final push to get to the playoffs last year, was because of their running game. And now if he's out, that puts more of a workload on Najee Harris. So, yeah, that hurts the offense. And now the whole, Brandon Ayuk stuff, now who knows at this point if he's going to get traded. Now it seems like he's going back to the 49ers because he was at practice. I did a segment on that. But yeah, I mean, who's going to be that number 2 wide receiver that steps up in this offense? You got that. That's a problem. Now you got Jaylen Warren hurt. You don't know how long he's going to be out. The offensive line hasn't looked good. I mean, the Steelers' defense we know is going to show up. The Steelers' defense is the strength of the team. But they need to have an offense that can complement them to an extent. Because Minka Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt are not going to be scoring touchdowns constantly. We know that they can. They could take over. Well, T.J. Watt could take over a game. Minka Fitzpatrick, we see what he's done since he's gone to Pittsburgh. Since he came over there from Miami in the trade. I mean, he's been great for them, but the offense is what's got to score the points. The defense has got to get stops. Now the defense can score as well, like I said, but the defense is there to get stops and give the offense the ball back, create turnovers. But yeah, it's these two games, Steelers' offense has not been great. And in terms of who should be the starter, I mean, I think Russ should be the starter. But similar to like what I said with Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, I think his leash is going to be short. Steelers get off to a bad start, Justin Fields is coming in. And if all else fails, you go to Kyle Allen. Not really, but it's going to be interesting. Now, the thing I'll say is, it's not like the Steelers have a long-term commitment to these two guys. If they don't end up panning out, they're gone. But then that puts them in a tricky situation because who's going to play quarterback then? They have a good roster. Now, I think on the offensive side of the ball, there's definitely improvements that need to be made, especially with the receiving core. Because usually with the Steelers, their receiving core is usually pretty good. You got George Pickens, but, there's question marks outside of him. They did draft Roman Wilson from Michigan, but, we got to see how he is. They signed all these veteran guys. Receiving core is pretty weak. Outside of who I just said. You got Pat Freiermuth, who's a good tight end. But they need another playmaker or two on that offense. And they just don't have that. That's why it seemed like they were really pushing for this Ayuk deal to get done, and it's not going to happen, it seems. At least right now. But I think, is it time to panic and, freak out? No, with how the quarterbacks have played, because it's still the preseason. Still got one more week, and then we get to the start of the season. But I could definitely see Steelers fans being frustrated throughout the year with how the quarterbacks are playing. And part of it all starts up front. If you don't protect these guys, well, you're not going to have an offense. Because they're going to have no time to throw. And the running game's going to suffer too. So, look, we gave the Steelers credit when they went out and they signed Russ, and the Broncos are paying his contract. And then Justin Fields, they didn't give up that much to get him. But now these guys got to play well. Whoever's the starter. So, and it also doesn't help that, I'm going to say it again, they play in the toughest division in football. And that second half of the season, if the Steelers' offense struggles, and the offensive line struggles like it is in the preseason, and you don't have that figured out by the second half of the season when you're playing the Bengals twice, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, I think, the Browns. If you don't have it figured out by then, because the first half of the season is where they're going to get most of their wins. If they're going to want to get back to that, if Mike Tomlin's going to want to continue his winning ways. If you don't go into that second half with a decent record, and the offense has been up and down and the line hasn't been good, That second half of the season is going to be brutal. I mean, already it's brutal just looking at it. But they got some work to do on that offense. And yeah, I don't know. Their first game is against the Falcons. We'll see. I mean, and then this was also Russell Wilson's first, game action of the season too. But and the calf injury, he's feeling great. So at least from what we're being told, he's healthy. But is he going to be effective? And at least for these first 2 weeks in the preseason, Steelers' offense just has not been great. So we'll see what happens, but let me know what you guys think, though, about the Steelers' quarterback situation. Who do you think should be the starter in Week 1? I still think you start Russ, and then, if he doesn't play well, then you go to Justin Fields, but someone's got to play well. And, if they don't play well, and like I said, if the offensive line is not going to protect them either, it's Steeler fans are not going to be happy. That's what I know, and I live with a Steelers fan. So, we're going to take our next break now, and then when we come back, we'll talk about Daniel Jones and the Giants. We will talk about them when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.